Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Oh, Hare Krishna. So, we are planning to study this Vedic literature called Sri Ishopanishad. Okay. I was hoping we'd have some books here. We'll see. So I was just asked to say a few words in the beginning about why. Why should we take some time? I know this is your very valuable Sunday afternoon. You could be doing many different things. So why study this Sri Ishopanishad?
Srila Prabhupada distributed first book.
Yeah, very good, very good. Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, took the trouble to translate and comment on this Upanishad because he thought it was important as such to give us this knowledge. And it was one of the, in fact, it was one of the first books printed and distributed in ISKCON. I don't know if you knew that. So when there was teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Bhagavad Gita, Sri Ishopanishad. It really contains some of the basic, elemental information that we need to know about who we are and who is God. So, as you probably know, the Vedic knowledge is vast. And there's three divisions, generally speaking, three divisions of the Vedas. I don't know if you know this stuff. Anybody know three divisions? Three parts? Yeah, maybe, but I was thinking of different three divisions. There's Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, and Upasana Kanda. Have you heard this before? Or is this new information? Okay. Karma Kanda means ritualistic activities to get some particular material results. Karma Kanda. Jnana Kanda means, as the word jnana means knowledge, right? So some knowledge about what's going on in the world. And Upasana Kanda means worship. So, of those three, this what we're studying, Sri Ishopanishad, is part of the Jnana Kanda, as are all the Upanishads. There's 108. So this is part of Jnana Kanda, and Jnana in the Upanishads. I'm just talking here. This is focused on differentiating between the material world and spirit. This is a big deal, because usually what happens in most of our life, day after day, we're kind of focused exclusively on what's going on in the material world, right? Yeah. So the Upanishads focusing on helping us differentiate what is matter and what is spirit. Matter on one side, spirit on the other. Because we're dogged in this world by the false belief that matter is everything. That's all there is. So the Upanishads helps us to focus and get a handle on reality besides matter. And there is spirit, and that spirit has certain qualities and attributes. Do you follow? So that's the Upanishads. Now, if you look at it, if you've got Upanishads, the matter on one side and spirit on the other, the living entity is spirit, and God is also spiritual. So they're both on the same side of the equation. You follow? So some people in reading the Upanishads mix up You follow what I mean? Mix up the living entity and God. You follow? Because they're both on the same spiritual side of the equation. That's a very common thing to do. But this Upanishad, which is associated with the Yajur Veda, there's 4 initial Vedas. This is associated with the Yajur Veda, clarifies the difference between the living entity, you and I, and God. Therefore, it's called Sri Isho Upanishad. And that first part of the Upanishad, Isho, means, anybody know? Figure it? Isha means Ishvara, the controller, the supreme controller, Isha. So this is focusing on, so it gives us elementary and eye-opening information about the Isha, God or Krishna, in pursuance, because the purpose of all the Vedas, the conclusion and the purpose of studying all this literature is, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa sarvair aham eva vedyo. By all the different study of the Vedas, I am to be known. That's also said, Vede Ramayana Chaiva Purane Bharate Tatha Adao Ante Cha Madhye Cha Harir Savatra Priyate. In Vedic literature, from the beginning, middle, and end, everything is meant for understanding. Anybody got an idea? Are you with me? Are you with me?
Yeah.
The Supreme Lord. Hari. Okay, got it. Okay. So, and what is the result of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What is the result?
Go back to home, back to God. Jump
Freedom, that's right. Yeah, freedom from death. Wow. That's a big deal, isn't it? Nobody wants to die. But Krishna assures us if you can really understand him, then you'll have no more material death or spiritual death. But you'll have your eternal body, spiritual body. So, near the end of this series, there's going to be, I think, 7. There's going to be an exam. Don't be too scared. I mean, some of the younger people, they remember they just got out of school, or they're going to school, right? So they're used to being tested. What's the purpose of the exam? Why exam?
We are serious about this.
Yeah, you have to know. That's how you really get responsible for knowing this stuff. So at the end there'll be a little exam. It won't be too hard, but it'll be a good experience for everybody if you want to really get to understand this part of the Sri Upanishad, the Vedic literature. Okay, so that was my introduction. So then I thought, well, you know what? In the Vedas, the traditional Vedas, they were transmitted by memory through chanting. Did you know this? Like students in the school, where they would learn by rote, they would chant for hours and hours and hours the mantras, because that way they would become fixed in their mind. And so when you go to a particular ceremony or yajna, you hear always the chanting of the Vedic hymns as part of the important part of the ceremony. And it's not so, we don't hear it so much in the West, but I found on the internet, and hopefully it'll work, a 4.5 minute rendition of the whole Sri Upanishad. There's one invocation, 18 verses of the chanting of these prayers, these mantras. So I thought, well, I'll give it a try. If it's kind of unusual, but by hearing the sound of the Vedas is purifying. It purifies our consciousness. If you'd like to, just take a relaxing seat and hear the chanting, it'll be purifying for you, for sure. Srila Prabhupada actually encouraged us to learn this Vedic chant. There's other chants like the Purusha Sukta, which the devotees or demigods chant for the pleasure of Lord Vishnu. So this is another one. If we have it ready, are we about ready? No?
Negative.
Oh, okay.
So both sides, it's not huge, but
Oh, you can. Yeah, hopefully. Oh, you can read the translation along the way, because the translation is very interesting for all these verses also. This, I have to admit to you, this is an experiment. We haven't done this way before. Usually we chant. Okay. Yeah. So we'll just you can take a nice comfortable seat and we'll hear the sounds of the Upanishad Vedas and get some upliftment, some spiritual upliftment. Okay, you ready? Yeah.
Volume 52, Volume 53.
Om Kratos Mara Kritak Smara Kratos
Hare Krishna.
Mute.
How was that? How was that for you? Huh? So now we'll go back to the invocation. And if we can, I don't know if we can get it on the screen, but we can chant it a little bit responsively. I say, you say, oh good, here we have books. They've arrived. Thank you. Sure. You can pass them out. Nice, nice, nice. So the invocation goes, is it up here on the screen? Not yet, okay. I'll wait, we'll wait a couple of minutes.
TV speaker. HDMI cord.
The person's talking.
Save your command while pressing the voice button. To see the volume level, say volume, mute.
Invocation, okay? Can we pass this out a little quickly? Okay. I don't know what page it is on your book, but Hare Krishna. Okay. And you have the book? You have the invocation ready? Okay, good. So I say, you say, okay? Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Purnat Purnam Udachyate. Purnat Purnam Udachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya. Purnasya Purnamadaya. Purnam evavashishyate. Purnam evavashishyate. Would someone like to chant it and we'll follow?
Om Purnamada Purnamidam
Om Purnamada Purnamidam
Purnat Purnam Udachyate
Purnat Purnam Udachyate
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnam Eva Vasisyate
Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Very good, very good. Yes, Pratik, Prabhu.
Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam
Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam
Purnat Purnam Udachyate
Purnam Purnam Udachyate
Purnasya Purnam Adaya
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnam Eva Vasishyate
Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Ladies. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. One more.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam
Om Purnamada Purnamidam
Purnat Purnam Udachyate
Purnam Purnam Udachyate
Purnasya Purnam Adaya
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnam Eva Vishishyate
Purnam Eva Vasishyate. So the transliteration, Om, the complete whole.
The complete whole.
Purnam,
Purnam.
perfectly complete.
Perfectly complete.
Ada,
Ada.
that. Purnam,
Purnam.
perfectly complete.
Perfectly complete.
Idam,
Idam.
this phenomenal world.
This phenomenal world.
Purnat,
Purnam.
from the all perfect.
From the all perfect.
Purnam,
Purnam.
complete unit. Udachyate,
Udachyate.
is produced.
Is produced.
Purnasya,
Purnasya.
of the complete whole.
Of the complete whole.
Purnam,
Purnam.
completely all,
completely all,
adaya,
Adaya,
having been taken away,
having been taken away,
purnam,
Purnam,
the complete balance,
the complete balance,
eva,
Eva,
even, avashishyate,
avasishyate,
is remaining.
is remaining.
Translation. I'll just read this. You don't have to repeat. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Then we'll read the purport. So, just a hint, this tells you a little bit about the Isha and the creation of this world. Okay? Purport. The complete whole, or the supreme absolute truth, is the complete personality of Godhead. Realization of impersonal Brahman, or of Paramatma, the super soul, is incomplete realization of the absolute complete. The supreme personality of Godhead is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Realization of his impersonal Brahman is realization of his Sat feature, or his aspect of eternity. And Paramatma realization is realization of his Sat and Chit features, his aspects of eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, bliss. When one realizes the Supreme Person, he realizes these aspects of the Absolute Truth in their completeness. Vigraha means form. Thus, the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any way, he could not be complete. The complete whole must contain everything both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. Are you following? Are you following? Yes, I'm so. Okay. I'll read another paragraph, then we'll speak a little bit, and then we'll go further. Okay. The complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potencies, all of which are as complete as he is. Thus, this phenomenal world is also complete in itself. The 24 elements of which this material world is a temporary manifestation are arranged to produce everything necessary for the maintenance and sustenance of the universe. No other unit in the universe need make any extraneous effort to try to maintain the universe. We don't have to get anything from outside. Right. The universe functions on its own time scale, which is fixed by the energy of the complete whole, and when the schedule is completed, this temporary manifestation will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete whole. Planned obsolescence, I think they call it. You know that? Yeah, that happens. So we'll stop here. We'll talk a little bit. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurinvitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manokishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadabhahyam Dadati Shapadatikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Very good. So we're taking this approach to study the Vedas, and there are so many subject matters. Well, this might be on the test, by the way. There's so many subject matters that we can study. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami says, Shrota Vyadini Rajendra Nrinam Shanti Sahasrasha. In human society, there are thousands and thousands of things, subject matters to study. Yeah. Used to be you could read it in different kinds of newspapers and magazines. Now it's internet, but the same idea. There's so many, entertainment, sports, medicine, politics, so many things. And apashyatam atma tattvam. But none of these will give you information about the self or how to extricate yourself from your condemned position. Not only you, me also. Our possession, all of us are condemned to death. Bad news, huh? All of us. But none of those other kinds of information will give you a hint about what to do in that circumstance. So therefore, and we know that the Vedic aphorism is asatoma sadgamaya, tamasoma, jyoti. Go from the untruth to the truth, go from the darkness to the light. Mrityoma, amrityogamaya. Go from death to life, eternal life, eternal life. So, all these other kinds of information are distractions to our essential purpose in our lives, is to understand what we're doing here. How come we're faced with death? And how can we get out of it? It's coming. It's already written. Yeah. So, and we're all in the same boat, but one difficulty is, where are we going to get trustworthy information about this quest? Now we hear about, is it fake news, you call it? Yeah, so there's so many different people. Everybody's trying to give you their version of the truth, and everybody has a certain spin about what's true and what's not true. How can we get reliable, accurate information about how to go about extricating ourselves, escaping this cycle of birth and death? So, especially, Srila Prabhupada explains in the introduction, if we want to find it in our search for truth, we get lots of pitfalls, because within this realm of existence, there are 4 things that impede our search for truth if we get it from anybody on our level. What are those 4 things you might know? We have, what's that? Imperfect senses, very good. And we make mistakes, and we have illusion, we're an illusion, and we cheat.
Oh my God.
Every single person within this universe does that stuff. So, for example, a little illustration. So, imperfect senses. You might have an example. Has anybody heard of the Innocence Project? Nobody?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Acharya Prabhu. So, usually when they try to convict somebody, the best kind of evidence is eyewitness testimony, right? Eyewitness testimony. I saw him do this, and therefore he's guilty. So they made using DNA evidence to corroborate convictions. They got hundreds of people off with the DNA evidence proving that they got the wrong person. 71% of those people were convicted on the basis of, what's that? Eyewitness testimony. You're right. Eyewitness testimony. Imperfect senses. Another one another example I like to use. So not follow. Yeah, that's right.
Imperfect.
We got it. Is we try to have our understanding, and we see things and we hear things in a social context. So there's some researchers who were doing an experiment with people in a classroom, and they told the participants, there was about 20, they wrote on the board 3 lines on the board in front. The first 2 lines were short, and the last line was long, obviously. Okay? Have you heard this before? I think you've heard it. Anyway, so most of the people in the room were in on the deal. And they said, you know, they were told to say, oh, which is the longest line of the 3? The last one, right? The last one. But they were told to say the first one is the longest, okay? Well, 29 people in the room. One person was not in on the deal. You follow? 2, 3, 4. Everybody who was in on the deal first. And they got to the final one who was not in the deal, and what did that person say? Huh? The first one is longest. You bet. Was the first one longest? What did they say? Why did they say that? Huh? Yeah. So even our perceptions, we think they're, you know, I saw it, but they're influenced so much by our expectations and surroundings. So, like in this world, in the world, everybody's saying, "Oh, you're this body. There's no life after death. There's no God." So then, what do you say? The purpose of life is to enjoy the physical body, right? Anyway, that's called imperfect senses and mistake. Okay. Then the second one was, what was the second one? Imperfect senses.
Illusions.
No, mistake was the second one. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of just like John F. Kennedy was told, don't go to Dallas. Don't go to Dallas. There's people are gunning for you. But he went anyway. And why did he pick John F. Kennedy? I mean, he could have picked other people, but why John F. Kennedy?
Famous man.
Famous, very intelligent, the top of his game right at the time. And it wasn't only John F. Kennedy who made the mistake. You know, when he was elected, I don't know if some people were around back then. I was around back then, but his whole cabinet, they called them. They were the best and the brightest of the whole political class. That's what they called them. Do you remember this? They were the best and the brightest, and they got involved. They got the United States involved in the Vietnam War. You know this. And I think John Kerry, who was later the presidential candidate and Secretary of State, said, which person should be the last person to die? You remember this? For a mistake. Remember that? So even the best and the brightest make mistakes. You remember Enron? The smartest guys in the room. That was their motto. We're the smartest guys in the room. And then of course there's the Iraq War. Right? All these things. So highly placed, very supposedly intelligent people, they're making mistakes. What to speak of you and me? Then we've got illusion. It's the number 3. What is illusion? Illusion means we think we'll never die. I remember even when I was a little kid, I was worried. I'd hear about cancer and things, and I'd think, gosh, I'm worried my parents will die. But I didn't think I would die. I was worried they would die from cancer. Illusion, mistakes, imperfect senses. And the final thing is, even though we've got all these problems, still we think we know what's going on, and we can tell and instruct others. So these 4 things disqualify us. Oh, you know, even from the Indian historical point of view, you remember Rudyard Kipling? Remember Rudyard Kipling? He got, I think, a Nobel Prize in Literature, wasn't it? Way back then. Yeah, and anyway, he was during the First World War. His son wanted to join the Navy, but he had bad eyesight, so he got rejected by the Navy. So he influenced his father. Can you do something for me? So he went to the army and lied on his behalf for his son, so his son could join the army. He got in the army. He had bad eyes. 2 weeks later, boom, he's finished. So he said later, that was a big mistake. Big Rudyard Kipling. So we're making mistakes all the time. So Is there information? We were talking about reliable, trustworthy information, right? Is there information that's reliable and trustworthy?
Yeah.
Is there a source of information that's not infected by these defects?
Yes.
Theoretically, what is that?
Knowledge from the disciplic succession.
Knowledge, yes, knowledge from, at least theoretically, just from a theory, you can say knowledge from God, the perfect person. A perfect person, not like a perfect person can give you reliable, trustworthy, valid information. If that's there. God is beyond our limited ability to figure out. He's called adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means you can't get it from your senses. You can't figure it out. And to get an inkling of how to begin to understand, he gave us this Vedic knowledge. And it's descending from him to us through the line of, as you mentioned, the spiritual masters. So it's something like, just like I ordered did you iron your clothes? So sometimes you get gunk stuck in there, you have to get a new iron. And when you get a new iron in your box, there's a little piece of paper that comes with it. And what's that paper? Instructions, yeah, the instructions come with instructions. It's just a little piece of paper. How about if you bought a car?
Manual.
What's the size of the car manual compared to the iron manual?
100 times larger.
It's gigantic, it's complete. Why is that? Why is that? It's much more complex, right? This manual, you have to look through it, and that manual are quite different. What about the manual for this, how to work in this world? You can imagine how huge that may be. That's called the Vedas. Just like, so I remember I just visited my hometown, and they built a new park. When we built the park, the people who built it immediately put up some rules. These are the things you can't make noise after midnight. You can't, bring your dog there to do his stuff and all that all those rules. So as soon as there's something created, manufactured, developed, the manufacturer, the person who creates it, creates a manual so you know how to get through it and do it properly. So similarly, these Vedas are the manual for understanding how to work around and be successful in this world. And we were talking about, the car manual. Now, in the car manual, it tells you what to do if your windshield wiper doesn't work properly, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But is that the goal of the manual?
No.
Why not? It goes along with it, but the whole purpose of that car is so that you can get in the car and go to your destination, right? And these little things might be important to help, but the basic thrust is to get your car running so that you get to your destination. So in the same way, the Vedas are there to get us not just some little small parts, but to get us to our destination, Vedaischa Sarvaya Aham Eva Vedyo, to understand who is God. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, when one has knowledge, and gets that knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then that knowledge lights up everything, just like the sun lights up the daytime. And this is what we're talking about. So in this verse, this is very pertinent to this verse. In this verse, the first word in the verse is what?
Om.
What was that?
Om.
What was that again?
Om.
Okay. And did you notice what the translation of that Om was? Did you notice what it was?
No.
What is the translation of Om? You've all heard Om. You all know Om, right? Some people are named Om. But what was the translation of Om? The complete whole, yes. Or in the complete whole, the supreme, the personality of Godhead is also said. Now, the yogis chant Om, but where did we get this idea that Om means the personality of Godhead? Well, guess what? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is describing himself. And he says, Rasoham apsu kaunteya. I'm the taste of the liquid or water. Prabhashmi shashi suryayo. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. Pranava sarva vedeshu. And I am Om, that's in all the Vedas. Did you ever hear people chant Om Namo Shivaya?
Yeah.
Did you hear that before? Yeah. You know who Om is? Krishna. Before you chant for any other god, demigod, to be effective, you have to say Om first, because that is Krishna. Krishna says that. Pranava sarva vedeshu. Actually, Jiva Goswami, who is the direct disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he very carefully examined Om. It's made of 3 letters. Maybe you know this. A-U-M. You know this? But that wasn't just manufactured. This Om Maha Vakya, A of the A-U-M stands for Krishna. U, any ideas? Any ideas? U stands for, is indicative of Lord Krishna's energies, particularly potencies, Srimati Radharani. You know this? And M is the living entities. So Om, the complete whole, is the sound representation of Lord Krishna, his energies, his potencies, and all the living entities together. Om. And he's full. Purnam. Purnam means full. You know this word, Purnam. So this is a really, really tricky thing. We're talking about the creation. Now usually when something is made, you get some ingredients, right? You get, so say you're making a car. We're stuck on cars. You get some metal and fashion it in a certain way, and you take the original metal and you make the car. And then what happens to the material that you started with?
It goes down.
It's gone. Yeah, because you used it up. You used it up. So this verse is saying something different than that.
Yeah.
Because the spiritual element is something that's not, doesn't exactly jive with matter. It's something different. So this is saying that Om, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he creates everything. So many universes, so many planets, but he's not diminished even on an iota. Wow. This is something mind-boggling. Where do we see this? Does we ever see this happening in the world? Do we ever see it happening? No. Yeah, sometimes you do. You ever see a magician? A magician, yeah, they take an apple, and then they put it in a hat, and then here it is. But we call that magic. But it does, we think, well, there's some trick there, there's some trick. But for Krishna, for Lord Krishna, there's no trick. He can do that. That's his difference between his potency and the potencies of the material world. So in spiritual circles, there's 2 different attitudes towards the creation. One attitude is that when God creates things, he loses his individuality. He uses himself up by creating these many universes. This is actually technically the philosophy of those people who are impersonalists or Mayavadis. Lord Chaitanya, and this verse from Ishopanishad specifically refutes that. That is a material concept. You follow? It's a material concept that he uses himself up to create this material universe, or the myriad universes. This technically is called, Parinambad. Can you say that?
Parinambad.
Good. Parinambad. There, very good. I'm going to read the definition for the Parinambad. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, in the Vedanta Sutra of Srila Vyasadeva, it is definitely stated that all cosmic manifestations result from transformations of energies of the Lord. Shankaracharya, however, not accepting the energy of the Lord, thinks that it is the Lord himself who is transformed. You follow? You follow? Yeah. He has taken many clear statements from the Vedic literature and twisted them to prove that if the Lord or Absolute Truth were transformed, his oneness would be disturbed. Thus, he has accused Srila Vyasadeva of being mistaken. In developing his philosophy of monism, he has established his philosophy of what was the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? We just said Parinambhad, right? This monism is Vivartavad. Vivartavad means when the Lord creates, he uses himself up in the creation. This will be on the test, by the way. Okay. Very, very interesting point. So, Lord Chaitanya gave the example here because this kind of stuff doesn't seem consistent with our experience in the material world, something that can create a full thing and not be diminished in itself. So he gave the example that in the Vedas, there's the statement that the dung of an animal is impure. You know that. You know that. But at the same time, it says, cow dung is pure. Now wait a minute. Somebody can say, wait. This is a contradiction. I can't accept that. This is a contradiction. This doesn't make sense here. No, but both are true. Both are true. You know, this doesn't register well with our way of thinking, right? How can you say this and you say this? No. But in the spiritual sense, two seemingly contradictory things can both be true and resonate. Therefore, that's the kind of thing we see in Sri Ishopanishad and the Upanishads in general. You say, the Lord has form, or the Lord has no form. Well, guess what? He is both form and formless. He walks and he doesn't walk. He's near, he's far away as well. These type of things. This is how can we understand? It's very confusing, right? It's confusing. It sounds like it's word jugglery, right? Just we're going back to the car. You know, I don't know if any of you are mechanics, but you pop the hood of the car and you look inside and you think, wow, look at all that stuff. Wires, pistons, spark plugs, everything. Very confusing. But you get an expert mechanic, they go in and say, oh, you have a problem? Turn this thing, immediately it's fixed. Does that ever happen to you?
Yes.
The expert mechanic can immediately fix it, but you, standing back, you're just completely befuddled. So in the same way, in the understanding of the Vedas, it's suggested, very strongly suggested, tad vijnanartam sagurum eva bigachchet. In order to get an accurate understanding, just like that mechanic, you got to have a guru who will teach you where those fine points and disturbances and can resonate and fix or dispel those apparent contradictions to your material understanding. And what are the qualifications of the guru? Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam means they didn't just make it up themselves. They heard it from their guru. And Brahmanishtam means they're fixed in that knowledge. Just like they don't teaching something and then they do something else. No, but they're fixed in understanding and showing the truth that they're teaching. So these are very, very interesting points. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to be great, in order to be wonderful, has to be beyond our abilities. He has to be wonderful. The example Srila Prabhupada often would give is that of the Brahmin and the cobbler. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
You know this cobbler, yeah. So what happens is, Narad Muni, he's a close associate of Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan. So he was taking a trip on the way to Vaikuntha to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he passed two people. One was a cobbler. Usually you think of cobblers, are not very advanced. Yeah. And one was...
What is a cobbler? Shoemaker?
Yeah, you don't... Yeah. Okay, thank you. Cobbler, you don't have to use that word too much. That's true. And one was a Brahmin. Someone, a priestly person. So both of them asked, oh, you're going to see Lord Narayan? You're going to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Can you ask them, for me, when I will be coming back to Godhead, Vaikuntha? So, Lord Muni did. He said, well, on the way I met these two persons. One was a Brahmin. They both seemed very nice. One was a Brahmin and one was a cobbler. Can you tell me when they might be returning back to Godhead? So Lord Narayan, you know what he said? He said,
Yeah.
What did he say?
For the Brahmin, he said that the Brahmin will take many hundreds of lives to come back to him, and the cobbler will reach him in the end of that life of his.
Hare Krishna.
And what did Narada Muni say? Wow, wait a minute, this Brahmin he seems very elevated. And the cobbler, so how is this? How is this? So Lord Narayan said, well, I have a simple thing for you to do. If he asks you what you were doing, just to test you, if he asks you what I was doing, tell him both that I was, you know what? What was that?
He was putting.
What's that? He was, threading. You know how you have a needle. Do you have a hard time putting a thread through a needle? I do. But he was not only putting a thread through a needle, he was putting an elephant through the eye of a needle.
Hare Krishna.
So I had to tell him that. Okay. So he went to the Brahmin, and the Brahmin said, oh, well, how long, when am I coming back? And Narada said, I have bad news for you. It's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. I don't believe it. Did you really see him? No. What was he doing? He was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. That's what he told me to say. And the Brahmin said, forget it. Baloney. Not possible. Not possible. Right?
Yeah.
And the cobbler, he said, oh, when he heard the same thing, oh, such a wonderful, my Lord is so wonderful. He can do anything. He can do anything. He puts, a gigantic banyan tree in a small seed. So this is very wonderful. Yeah. So these are the things to keep in mind while we study the Shri-Upanishad and get a sense of who Isha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is. We can get different aspects of Isha's greatness, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in that way. But one thing to remember is it's not possible to understand or appreciate the Supreme Personality in His fullness, God, Krishna in His fullness, just by study of the Vedas.
Hare.
Naham Veda na tapasa na danina na chejaya. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, it's not by studying Vedas, Naham Veda. Na tapasa means not by doing some austerity. Na danina, not by what? Charity.
By charity.
Na chejaya. It's not by these things, by worship. How can you know? Bhaktya tvananyaya shakya aham evam vidorjuna. It's only by devotional activity, devotional service, that I can be understood fully as possible by His grace. This point is emphasized also in Sri Upanishad. So we'll read the last part of this purport, because that explains, that emphasizes this point also here. The completeness of human life can be realized only when one engages in the service of the complete whole. All services in this world, whether through this, all services in this world, whoops, whether social, political, communal, international, or even interplanetary, will remain incomplete until they are dovetailed with the complete whole. When everything is dovetailed with the complete whole, the attached parts and parcels, that's you and I, also can become complete in themselves. Devotional service is the method to fully understand, or as fully as possible understand, the Isha, as we're talking about Sri Upanishad. Lord Chaitanya quoted that same idea. He said, Atapi te deva padambuja dvayam prashadu leshanu vihita evahi janati tatvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko picharam vichidvan. My Lord, if one is favored even by a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, that person can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they try to do so for millions and millions of years. So, the Sri Upanishad conclusion is understanding Krishna, engage, and understanding him will give us impetus to engage in devotional service. Every single one of us, by our very nature, wants to have a loving relationship. And all the loving relationships we can develop within this world are limited. Ultimately, they won't lead us to full happiness. That loving relationship that we can have with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is most full and everlasting. And by developing that relationship by the practice of bhakti yoga, which begins, anybody know? Chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That will give you the higher pleasure, the spiritual pleasure in that relationship with God that will give you the most happiness you've experienced. So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Questions? This is just the first invocation for Sri Upanishad. We talked about the 4 defects, right? We talked about how the Vedas are the manual, right? The manual for this. We talked about how in the Vedic literature sometimes there's contradictions, but they become resolved through Krishna, like the dung of an animal, but is pure. The cow dung is pure. These kinds of things. So these are 3 important points to take away from this. And if you have other questions, please ask. I know I'm 7 minutes early. I didn't think I'd be so early. No? Yes.
Since we all cannot read or understand Gita, would it be understandable if we take Gita, Bhagavad Gita, as a manual for life? Because we can understand or try to understand. And with the mercy of Prabhupada, that was my question.
Yes. This Bhagavad Gita is also called, there's another name for Bhagavad Gita?
Song of Love.
Another name? Gita-upanishad. Yeah, Gita-upanishad. So it's completely in line with this information too. Yes. You can take that as a good manual, beginning manual, yes. Okay, other question?
Prabhuji, why did Srila Prabhupada honor to give this book as the first, publication?
What's that?
Why did Srila Prabhupada bring this book to be the first one to know?
It wasn't the
Because
first,
the
I
other-
said it was the third, but it was one of the first. The first one he published, the first one he brought from India was Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. Then Teachings of Lord Chaitanya and Bhagavad Gita, then Sri Upanishad. But a very early book. So we've been studying Bhagavad Gita, so we were just taking a little. And today, I recommend, some of you have the book, keep it, just give a little donation. We're going to be studying it, and it'll be good. It's not a long book, it's only small. You can imbibe this very nicely. So Sri Upanishad, this is Sri Upanishad the next few days, few weeks. Other question? No? Okay. One other, just a couple announcements I can make, which I have a little time here. Not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday afterwards. Tuesday. What day is that date? Is that the 30th? 28th, sorry, 28th. That's the disappearance day of the grand guru, Srila Prabhupada's guru's father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So I thought we would do a few special things that day. There's a song that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. It's called Bhog Arati. I don't know if you've heard it. Bhog Arati. Yeah, in that song, he describes all the different kinds of preparations that can be offered to Krishna, that Srimati Radharani actually offered to Lord Krishna, for Lord Krishna's pleasure. It's all in Bengali. It goes, Luchi, Chini, Shar, Puri, Laddu, Rasavali, all these things. Shak, what is it? Shukta, Shakadi, Baji, Nalita, Kushmanda, all these things. Anyway, so I thought, for this Tuesday, the noon offering, that we would make all those preparations for the satisfaction of Krishna following Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So if anybody would like to, they can come and talk to me about that too. And in Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the person who rediscovered the birthplace, the valid birthplace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I don't know, you probably know this. It's in Bengal, Navadvip area. And he had his house there in Navadvip on Godrum Dvip. So I thought also we could give a little donation. I talked to Ganapati Prabhu who's here. He's a pujari. He knows everybody there. And we could give a donation to make an offering there at Bhaktivinoda Thakur's place, house in Mayapur. We're an international society for Krishna Consciousness. We just don't do things in Philly. We do things all over the world. Just like some of you last week were at New York for the Rath Yatra. Did you go? Some people go? Yeah. How was it? Actually, that was the biggest one since 1976. Did you know? It was pretty amazing. Yeah, pretty amazing. How do we know that? Well, because the last few years, if you've been, they let one lane on Fifth Avenue open, right? Because they let the traffic go down. But this year, not possible. Too much, too many participants there. And there were more than 15,000 plates of prasad distributed. And still they ran out. So this is a good sign, because offering to Krishna says, Patram pushpam panam doyam, you offer me these things, offer me fruits, flowers, etc. And I will eat them, and then that distribution of that food is called prasadam, and everybody who tastes that gets benefit, transcendental benefit, spiritual benefit. So more than 15,000 plates were distributed, so this is very nice, all over the world, New York, and now we're going to make an offering to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Bhajan Kutir in Navadvip on Godrum Dvip for his disappearance day. Not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday. So if you want to do that, see me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm done. That's it. We have like a minute before the arti. Oh. Hare Krishna.